ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to High School Crunch Time. It's another fantastic week of high school football. And I'm Johnny Samp once again. Alongside me is Dom D'Angelo. Over to my left, or depending on which way you look at it, might be left or right for you. I'm pretty sure it's going to be left. It's a little bit flipped for us here on the broadcast. But Dom D'Angelo, the broadcaster of Notre Dame Academy. And it should be an excellent show today. Once again, we have plenty of topics to talk about. High school football has been going on here in Northeast Wisconsin for now, 4 weeks, I believe? We're finally at 4 or 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5. I think week 5 was this past week, I think.
So it's been going on and plenty to talk about once again on a fantastic week, a fall week again, and beautiful weather now. We're starting to get that football weather, I would say, with that 60 degrees, getting into the 50s a little bit at night. And it's getting to be pretty nice out for football, if I must say so myself. Now, Dom, so things kind of looked around, and we'll start it off with Notre Dame. We'll have you kind of lead it off at Notre Dame, Manitowoc, Lincoln. And Notre Dame had a big one. They, once again.
Yeah, 42-0 was the final in that game over the Ships. This was the final home game for the Tritons, which is going to be for close to a month pretty soon. They're not going to be in the comforts of Ted Frisch Field until senior night, which is, I believe, October 18th, if I'm not getting my days crossed here. I'll keep this pretty simple. Defense and ground game. It's been the story for them all year. You look at this game, Christian Collins was back in action this week. He had a hat trick, 3 touchdowns, looks really, really good. I know one thing you and I talked about last week was, are they going to involve more than just Christian coming back off of that injury? Kingston Allen actually outpaced him for carries. He had 70 yards in his own right and a touchdown. And then defensively, this pass rush really made things difficult on Manitowoc Lincoln. James Flanagan had 5 sacks, which is, not a small number when it comes to that department. They had 6 sacks total as a team. So they looked really dominant like they have in this last stretch here. This week is going to be their biggest test since probably De Pere. Week 2.
And I can kind of lead into that. Without a doubt, Notre Dame looked really good, and they're playing really good football once again. The ground game was a big feature in that Manitowoc-Lincoln game, and they keep, they've been pounding the ground quite a bit for a, high school football team, and they get a lot of yards with their Kingston Allen and Christian Collins kind of combo, but they don't really run them on the same plays. It would be dangerous if you guys have a split backfield over there at Ted Frisch Field. I mean, you wouldn't know who it's going to go to, and if it did go to, whoever it went to, they're going to run for, quite a few yards. We look at Kingston Allen, it looks like, or Christian Collins, he returns to the field. He had 3 touchdowns in that game. I mean, he had the hat trick there, and that's pretty good to get things started. Now, we mentioned before the show that after the half, the JV team kind of did take over for that Notre Dame squad. It was getting to that kind of blowout kind of atmosphere. And just, you want to see things get a little bit closer. But, I mean, if you're Notre Dame, you're thrilled on how things are going. You can rest your starters a little bit. And you can still hold that 42-0 lead over the Manitowoc-Lincoln Ships. So there's not a lot of complaints, I wouldn't think, coming from that Notre Dame locker room. Things seem to be going well. They are now, I believe, moving up to 5-0, 4-0?
5-0, yep,
5-0. So now undefeated still, but yes, they do have their big game. Probably coming up this weekend against Menasha, or rather it's Friday. And that's going to be a tough one. Let's take a little preview at that. I mean, Menasha, one of the tight ones, so they are coming in a 3-game win streak after they lost their first 2 in kind of a shocking, head-scratching way, if I must say. I mean, they started out 0-2. They lost to Plymouth right away. And then Nina, which was a little more, I would say, formidable loss, an expected loss there. But, I mean, what do you have to say about this Menasha team? You got to travel there, correct?
Yeah, the game is going to be in Menasha at Kohler Stadium. Very kind of similar to Notre Dame from the standpoint of they play defense. They really have the last 3 weeks. When you look at some of the totals that they've given up, their last 3 games they pitched 2 shutouts back-to-back against Oshkosh North and Green Bay East. And then they only gave up 13 points against Green Bay West. So this Menasha team is one that has been near the top of the conference for the last number of years, if we're being quite frank. And They do it in their own way. They're not afraid to throw it. Their quarterback, Logan Leigel, has 63 attempts on the season. Is completing about 50 of them. So, not the craziest percentage. Not Patrick Grayson, like we'll talk about later. But,
Yeah.
7 touchdowns to 2 picks is pretty good. He's averaging 100 yards a game, which is pretty solid. He also runs it a little bit. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. And like I said, defensively is really where they kind of hit their mark a little bit. They've got some really big numbers in the sack department with Jaden Lancer and Elijah Phillips having 6 and 5 respectively. So this is definitely going to be, if you're looking at it from the Notre Dame perspective, the biggest game of the year because this will probably decide who wins the conference this year. I remember last year the game was played at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame did win that one, and that essentially decided the conference championship there. If I'm looking at my notes here, going back a season ago, at Notre Dame, it was a 42-14 game. Menasha couldn't really get much of anything going offensively. I thought defensively they held serve for a good part in that first half there, but then Christian Collins broke a couple big ones, and Menasha just never really had it. And it's a little bit of a bus ride. It's about a 40-ish minute travel to back and forth between each school. So it's certainly going to be a great game. It's one that I am anticipating on calling, actually. So I'm really looking forward to being there for that one. And, this should, by all indications, should be a really, really highly contested game.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think Menasha is that team that's going to be that could potentially disrupt the season a little bit, just because they are that talented of a roster. But I mean, taking a look at their team, I mean, they're just stacked all over the place. They look like a really good team, and they play good defense, as you mentioned before. But they did have those slip-ups in the beginning of the season, so they are capable of dropping pretty big games. And it'll be interesting to see how they come out and how they attack that Triton team. From the other side perspective, I guess I would say. So what would be your score prediction for this one, and who are you taking?
I'm going to say it's close. I think what's really going to be a big determining factor in this game is, are either of these two passing offenses going to open up? Because Max Pierce, the quarterback for Notre Dame, has looked better the last number of weeks. Only 4 passing attempts last week. I know it was a blowout, so they didn't really feel the need to throw it as much. But I'm anticipating closer to double-digit passing for Max Pierce. And then same thing for Menasha. Their leading receiver on the season's only got 4 catches, and that's Parker Wynand. So I'm going to say that I'm going to pick Notre Dame to win this game. I'm going to go 28-20. I think Menasha will get a couple field goals. I would not be shocked if they get a couple turnovers, too, because Notre Dame, the last couple big games they've played, I remember the Rice Lake playoff game that they played last year, level 4 of the playoffs. They did have some miscues when it came to turning the ball over. So Menasha can get after them. I think they will. But I think that ground game with Christian Collins now having a full week to really get back in the swing of things, as good as he looked last week, and the development of Kingston Allen, and then that pass rush that was so dominant against the Manitowoc Lincoln Chips is going to be enough to seal the deal. So it's going to be a happy, long bus ride home for the Tritons. I think they improved to 6-0 after beating Menasha.
Okay, I'm going to take the flip side. I'm going to take the Blue Jays. Let's go Menasha. I got to just make things interesting. But I think their defense is really good. I think both sides are going to be a really good defensive battle. It's going to be kind of a, winning in between the trenches. Nothing's going to be real pretty. I think that's just going to be how kind of this game goes. So my score prediction for this one is got to be, I'm going to take the Blue Jays. They're going to score 21, Notre Dame 17. We're going to keep it close. It's going to be a really tight game. It's going to come down, I would think, to the wire at some point, and you're going to have to see what both sides can do. But, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one. And I think if you're looking for a good game to watch, I mean, there's a couple of them on tap for this week that are really going to be good. And this one's going to be one of those games that's just going to be really top tier, really good football. And right here in Northeast Wisconsin once again, so you can go ahead and watch those games, pay the $5, get on in, and watch some good football on a Friday night. The Notre Dame Tritons and Menasha Blue Jays. But now let's move over. One more point.
Yeah, I want to correct a mistake that I made earlier. I previously said Parker Wina was the leading receiver with 4 catches. I was looking at the wrong column. He leads the team with 23 catches. So he's had a very nice season, and Notre Dame has had some issue with big time receivers. Our Parker Shue, the stud from Kakana, kind of ate him up a little bit week 1. So expect they don't really travel their corners too much, but I would expect Charlie Hornacek and Parker Wina to be a really fun matchup in that game on Friday.
For sure. And we've seen Hornacek, I've had a number of his highlights on the show already, and we've seen what he can do. So it'll be interesting to see how he reads that quarterback and if he's going to be a ball hawk or if he's going to try to just keep things in front of him with that Menasha Blue Jays team. But let's move on to Kimberly here. Once again, Kimberly moving through the FVA, the Fox Valley Association. They beat Appleton East 42-14. Elson had 5 for 6, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. Keegan Plow, 10 carries, 104 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10.4 yards per carry. He's averaging in that game. So is that the scariest stat of the night? I mean, that's got to be really scary, especially if you're Appleton East looking at that. And 10.4 yards per carry. What's he doing right? I mean, he's got to be busting the holes, finding the gaps. And he's getting through that secondary. So it's averaging a first down every time he touches the ball. That's pretty scary in that last one. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, what your thoughts are.
It's terrifying when you say that number, and that's not just an anomaly either. He's been doing this all season. He's got 33 total attempts on the season. He's averaging 11 yards a carry, and he's got 359 yards on the season. So it's definitely. It's also interesting to see. You look at some of these other ones. I mean, Marcus Doucet's averaging 10 yards a carry, and Reed Lindenberg's averaging 13 and a half. So it's certainly a credit to that offensive line for creating some of those holes. But also, that's just got to be like some really good ball carrier vision, I think. When you see any of these elite running backs do what they do, there's so much that goes into, hitting the right hole, knowing when to turn on the jets and everything that goes into that. So Keegan Plow has had a really, really good season. He had 3 touchdowns. He actually doubled his season total after that Appleton East game. He only had 3 coming into the game. He's now got 6. So phenomenal game for him. And as far as being the scariest stat, yeah, because it's scary because you know what they're going to do and you can't do anything about it. I think that's what's most intimidating about that Kimberly run game. You know it's coming, and no one this year has been able to stop it.
You just have to beat them and beat them man to man. And it's, no team has really proven that they can do that. Even Bayport, my alma mater, hasn't proven they can do that either. And, for Plow, I mean, averaging a first down, like, dude, that's insane. Like, 10.4 yards per carry. I mean, all credit to him and all credit to that line there, getting downfield, getting those blocks and opening up holes for him. Because I'm sure it's not just him juking everybody out, Barry Sandering it in the backfield, running around for his life. I'm sure there's a lot of system in place. And, Kimberly's always been that kind of school that's really been kind of a juggernaut consistently for the last, as long as I can remember. And they keep battering down on teams, and they're just doing something right over there. The water must be better than what we're drinking up here. You just never know. But they do have Hortonville this week, who is 1-2 on the season. Now, do you think Kimberly's going to win in a blowout fashion in that one? Hortonville's kind of gotten off to a rough start and continues to have a rough go at it.
Yeah, I think so, and it's unfortunate to say that because it just I don't see how anybody, and we've gone through the names and teams and everything that Kimberly's beat. I just don't see this week, I'll say, I just don't see them slipping this one. It's at Kimberly, at home, so that's going to be a big one. And yeah, to your point, Hortonville has struggled this year. They've really haven't been in a number of games. They got blown out and shut out to open the season against West De Pere. They played Pulaski close and then won a close one against Appleton East and had a really close one last week against Appleton North, not being able to result in a win. So with the way Kimberly can run it, the way that they play defense, it's going to be a really tough matchup for Hortonville, and I think out of all the games that we're going to look at today, that's probably the toughest one if anyone was to pick an upset. But you got to go play the game. That's what we always say. So, that would be one of the all-time shockers if Hortonville pulls this off. But I think a lot of people are pulling for him.
Yep, I got to pull from. I like the underdog and the underdog story, especially with this Kimberly team being so dominant. I would like to see Hortonville come out and show them what they got, but I just, if I was speaking logically, I would go with Kimberly with this one again in probably blowout fashion, but you never know. Kimberly's just that good. They're that big of a unit. When they come to town, even though it's a smaller town, it's not really that big of a town. Even though when they come to town, they play big ball, and they do it all the time, and they're unrelenting. I mean, every season they're good, and it's just been something that we've kind of learned to grow up with and know that Kimberly is going to be good at football, and they're going to keep being good.
Not much more to add off of that really, really strong program as we've documented these last number of weeks.
All right, now let's move a little bit south here. Let's go look at Neenah. Neenah beat Oshkosh West 29-10, so a big win there for them, the Neenah Rockets. It looks like Van Evenhoven was 13-20. Let me grab my sheet here. He was 13-20, 111 yards and 2 TDs in that contest. Keegan Plow had 10 carries, wrong team again. Dre Hannon had 24 carries, 166 yards. My goodness, and 2 trips to the end zone. So they got the legs moving. They got everything moving. Neenah's getting back on schedule after dropping that game to Kaukauna 2 weeks ago now. And, I think a lot of us are expecting Neenah to get back up there. They kind of fell in the rankings. I think they're now like 26 in the rankings. They're out of the top 25. But, Neenah, once again, picking things back up right where they left off. Van Beek had 3 catches, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. And Neenah is at Appleton North, who is also 3-0. Now, this might be our game of the week right here. Or 3-0 in Conference North is. And so this might be the game of the week right here with Neenah and Appleton North. Both good schools, but I would say Appleton North hasn't necessarily had the real competitive games against like Kaukauna yet. They've been playing some other teams. I believe they haven't really had that strong conference matchup. But they did lose early to Mugwanago 20-10, but that's still not bad for a really good program with Mugwanago losing by 10 points. And really, I mean, a 2-score game, but not really that out of hand.
Yeah, they have had the softer part of their schedule to start. Appleton North has. I think that's fair to say. They have Kimberly this week, and then they're at Kaukauna next week. And they're at Kimberly on Kimberly Senior Night, so that's no easy challenge there. But they played really well this season. They had a nice win last week against Hortonville, 24-13. And just kind of looking at, some of the numbers, they're not afraid to throw it, which is nice to see because we talk so much about, dominant ground games. But Charlie Olson, 19 of 27 last week, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have a pick, but that's, sometimes it happens. 105 quarterback rating. So they can move the ball without question. And receiving wise, Grant Hardy had 100 yards on 5 catches. He had a trip to the end zone, and so did Jack Kangas. He had a touchdown in that game as well. So this is definitely the game that I'm looking most forward to. If it's not the Notre Dame Menasha game, just I'm partially biased because I probably will be there. But yeah, this should be a really, really good game, and it was nice to see Neenah bounce back after that really tough loss a couple weeks ago to Kaukauna. And, 29-10, like you said, over Oshkosh West, and they got that ground game going once again, which they needed to do. They needed to establish the line of scrimmage, and Dre Hannon was a huge part of that. Defensively, came up with an interception. Brandon Price got one, and then they had 2 sacks from Luke Jung and Cole Fensky. So defensively, they got after it. Offensively, they got back to what they're best at, which is ground and pound. And atop the conference, just kind of looking this here, it's kind of a road blockage here between Neenah, Kimberly, Kaukauna, and Appleton North. So this game this week is going to go a long way in deciding who wins the Fox Valley this year.
Yeah, and that's a really good conference, really strong football conference. And, both Neenah and Appleton North are going to be a really good matchup here this Friday. And I think it'll be exciting to see how this game goes. But who do you got winning that game?
This one's tough. I am going to go. I'm going to go Appleton North because they're at home, because this is going to be their signature win on the year. I like what they're doing, especially defensively. I'm gonna go Appleton North here because I think that they are going to be able to control they're gonna play Nina's game against them. They're gonna control the clock and kind of do what they've done the last couple weeks. They're in the mid-20s every week. They got off to a little bit of a slow start against McGuanago, but since then, 21, 21, 24, 24. They've been really consistent, and I think that crowd is going to be super fired up, ready to go. So I'm going to go Appleton North. Maybe an upset, maybe not, but I'm going to
I was gonna
go.
say that's an upset. I would say.
Okay, I'm going to go Appleton North pulling off the upset here because that's going to be a ton of fun at Paul Ingen Field.
You know what? And I'm going to side with you. I think Appleton North's going to upset that one. I know we don't side much, but we're going to side on this one. I'm going to go Appleton North too. I'm putting my coins in or cashing my check with them. I just think, Nina's had their struggles on the road, and they've had their struggles with teams that are seemingly 3-0, have solid seasons going, really good programs, especially like the Kakana game, and then they just haven't been able to come through and get a win. But I definitely see Appleton North taking this game. It's going to be a close one, though, of course, because we always like close games. So if I had to choose a score, once again, I think this one's going to be a defensive battle. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. Now, I know I always score too low with high school football just because I feel like professional football scores. So I'm always a little bit low, but I'm going to go with I'm going to go 24 for Appleton North. I think they're going to get those 3 touchdowns and a field goal. And then I'm going to go 14 for Nina. I don't think they get the run game going. I'm going to get them a little low. I know I always say stay a little low. I'm not going to leave that spot. I think 24-14. Appleton North with the 10-point win. But we might be shocked the next week when we see Nina come out with a big win. So it's always fun.
Wow. So let's talk about this for a second. So 2 weeks ago, Nina was at Kakana, tough road environment.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they only scored 6 points in
That's
that
why I
game.
gave them 14.
Yeah, they got down early, if memory serves me correctly here, and they had a really difficult time stopping the run in that game. Aiden Reardon from Kakana had 123 yards. Not the greatest average, but still very effective on the ground. So if you're Nina here, let's put you in the coach's box. I know you like sitting in that seat. If you're the head coach this week, what's the number one thing you're stressing to guys? If we want to go on the road and win this week, this is what we got to do.
Stop the run. That's what I'm going to go with, stopping the run. I think Appleton North's got a good, solid run game. I'm not going to say a great run game, but I think they got a solid enough run game. If you can get to that secondary in Nina and start exploding through those gaps, you're going to find those extra yards. And I think Appleton North just, I don't know. I'm riding on the lightning, I guess I would say, for this one. And I feel like they're going to be that team that gets that big upset.
I agree with you. I'm picking Appleton North. I feel pretty good about it too because they've been rolling recently.
Yeah,
So,
watch us both be wrong.
yeah, well, it's gonna happen in one of these days. Just wait till we get really big, and then we're just gonna get clipped everywhere. It's gonna be great.
Oh, we're gonna have parents from all over the state messaging in saying, "Nope, you guys are wrong," and I'll be like, "Okay, thank you."
It's gonna be like when you see the crazy upsets. You see the social media teams for who was a big upset this week. Like I'm trying to think of one. Just picking us. You remember when Atlanta beat Philly on Monday night, and all the experts picked Philly and everything, and then the Atlanta social media team was like, "Bam, that's gonna be us once."
And they would have beaten the Chiefs if the Chiefs didn't cheat.
Yeah. Let's not get into
Yeah, let's go besides that, but because I got a long show coming up tomorrow that we talk about that. But yeah, the high school football is not quite the NFL, but it definitely does have its upsets, and I think this one's going to be a big upset with Appleton North. Do you have any other thoughts on this game?
I'm interested to see how Nina comes out because of the points that we mentioned with them kind of struggling in some of those bigger games. They really had a poor showing, kind of a sour taste in my mouth from that Kakana game a little bit. I'm also a little bit sour because I picked them to win and you picked Kakana and you haven't stopped reminding me about that the last 2 weeks. But
Well,
um,
I have to keep that in your back of your head.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Now,
But I'm interested to see if they come out fast. I think if they want to win this game, they have to get off to a fast start because that's really what hurt them when they were taking on the Galloping Ghost a couple weeks ago.
without a doubt. Now let's head over to Mr. Kakana, the Kakana team. Good, solid squad. We do have highlights here from Radio Plus, courtesy them. But they beat Fond du Lac 35-20. Kakana keeps on rolling. The Galloping Ghosts keep on galloping. Um, and they keep doing things right. Schaefer was 14 for 19. It looked like he had 200, or excuse me, he had 205 yards, 1 TD, 1 pick. Reardon, 20 carries, 96 yards, and 2 TDs as well. Running backs in general had 4 TDs in that game, so that was an impressive game on the ground. Once again, Kakana dominating that offense and just keeps things going. But they play Oshkosh West at Titan Stadium, my college alma mater, and but who gets the win there? You know, we have that Oshkosh West team kind of playing at home, but also in a bigger venue. It's could add some intimidation for that Kakana team, but I really just see Kakana keep on marching through.
Agreed. They have not given me any reason to deny that. They've been rolling ever since they dropped their opener at Notre Dame, which just you could just tell that watching it, it wasn't quite in sync yet, but it was going to get there. And then the next week they exploded against West Appear. So yeah, I'm going Kakana in this one. It is on the road, but I was really impressed with what I saw from them last week, especially since you know, Fond du Lac was able to kind of throw the ball around a little bit. 176 passing yards for DeAndre Williamson Jr., 3 touchdowns in that one, and they were still able to do more than they needed to in order to get the win in that game. They did come up with an interception defensively. Would like to see a little bit more pass rush out of them. No sacks is something that I think will be necessary as we keep going throughout the season here. But they've played really well the last number of weeks and haven't really given anybody, especially after that signature win that they had against Nina 2 weeks ago, and West Appear for that matter too, because West Appear looks really good at this point in the season too. They just kind of keep finding ways to win. They do it their way, which is fun to witness because it's something different every week. Sometimes it's the ground game, sometimes it's through the air, sometimes it's defensive way. They're a complete team over there in Kakana. So Oshkosh West, I'm hoping they give them a good fight. They're 1-4 on the season so far with that first win coming week 1. They've since then dropped 4 straight, so they're due for a win. It's going to be really tough to do it against this Kakana team, however.
Yeah, and Kakana continues to haunt their opposing teams. I had to say that because I thought of it while you were talking. Just a little fun here in High School Crunch Time. We're using, big words. We read big books over here, as they say. But yeah, Kakana just finding ways to win, doing it in different fashions. I don't think they were really expected to be this good at the beginning of the season, but they just kind of came out and punched everybody in the mouth and said, "Hey, we're here. We're ready to play ball," and they're doing that quite well. Now, I will say they had that West Appear game, and I've heard from the backup quarterback of West Appear that it was kind of a fluke win on that fumble, drop ball sort of thing, and it was just kind of a shocker. But hey, a win's a win. You take the W in the W column any day of the week. But yeah, I got Kakana winning this one. Again, score-wise, I'm going to say it's probably going to be like 35-10 in favor of Kakana. I think Kakana continues to roll that offense. Defense doesn't really give up too much. They'll give up a little bit. And, I just think they get another tally in the win column. And Kakana keeps moving through the conference in, formidable fashion, to say the least. They've been a really good school, and they continue to play really good ball. What's your prediction?
I'm in the similar range as you. I'm going to go, I think they're surpassing 30 again. I'm actually thinking they're going to drop 40 this week. I'm going to go 42. I'm going to give Oshkosh West a little bit more credit than maybe some others. I'm going to go 42-17. because that Kakana defense is susceptible to big plays, especially without much of a pass rush the last couple of weeks. So 42-17, I'm giving this one to the Galloping Ghosts.
All right, the Galloping Ghosts, we both got them. Now let's actually, I know I have on the script here that we go to Bayport, but let's take Bayport for last just because I want to. And let's go to West Appear right now. West Appear, so we do have highlights from that from the Pulaski broadcast, but they did take on Pulaski and they took care of business, winning 47-0. I mean, and we have some highlights of Grice in here, just throwing the ball with ease. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to watch him play. I finally got a little tape on him. And, the Phantoms are averaging 41 points this season, which is quite impressive. Their offense obviously is cooking. Grayson was 11 for 16, 291 yards. 291 yards. And then he had 5 TDs and 151 passer rating, which is pretty insane numbers, I mean, to say the least, for high school ball. And, continue to look at it, Grayson has 20 TDs on the season with only 4 picks. So he's got a season total of 133.9 passer rating and could hit 2,000 yards by the end of the season if he keeps kind of pace, which would be really impressive just to see from a high school quarterback. Now, I no means needing to praise Grayson, but I think he's having a really good season and he's doing really big things over there at West Appear. But by no means is the rest of their schedule easy. They do have De Pere, Bayport, and they have, yet to play a team who's got a really good QB. And I think, well, I wouldn't say that, but they got a really good team, and they got to play a couple really good squads with De Pere and Bayport just coming up here in the next couple weeks, back to back, I believe they are. So it's going to be a really tough schedule for West Appear, but I mean, they got a big win here against Pulaski, 47-0, and there's not much you can say about that. I mean, that's just kind of a controlled game.
Yeah, without question. To your point about Grayson, he's just incredible. He only missed 5 passes, which for him is honestly kind of low. Just a little short of 300 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he spreads the love, like we said. He had a number of contributors in this game. He had Ben Lermanen and Brock Story and Sam Suda, each contributing in the passing game, and they run it pretty well. Evan Ott had over 100 yards again. Defensively, they've been playing really, really well the last number of weeks. They forced a fumble. They actually, I think, brought one back for a touchdown, I believe, and they had a sack in this game. So West Appear keeps things rolling. To your point about their schedule, they do take on a very good De Pere team this week. De Pere is 4-1. They're coming off a 24-0 win against Preble last week. They themselves average about 27 points a game, and their only loss this season was I don't want to call it a fluke deal, but it was a really weird situated game. A 7-3 loss at home against the Tritons. So they've really looked good the last number of weeks. Some really nice wins against the Schwabenon. I'm talking the Redbirds here, and Pulaski and Preble last week. We make jokes about travel time sometimes. I don't think it gets shorter than this. It's West Appear and then to De Pere. It's pretty close. So this is going to be a really fun matchup. It's going to be in the home of the Phantoms. So they're going to get that home cooking, home crowd. And I think for me, Johnny, what this game is going to come down to is, can De Pere eliminate the big play from West Appear? Because if you run a streak or just a go ball with Patrick Grayson as your quarterback, he's going to hit you. And so you need to take that away. You almost need to play him like you play the Chiefs. You got to take away the home run ball. So that's what De Pere's got to do in this one to keep it close. They've got a solid ground game themselves, which is going to, I think, be pivotal in this game because they got to really control the clock in this one. Their leading rusher, Lucas Koski, has 500 yards on the season already, 6 touchdowns. So you got to really go in there, control the clock. Defensively, you got to be solid and not give up the big point. If you do those two things, you're going to have a really good shot at winning ultimate bragging rights over in De Pere.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out here is that I did a little research, did a little digging, and the Redbirds have 11 picks on the season. So they're ball hawks. over there. I mean, they're looking really good, and the Phantoms do have a really spread attack. But if the Redbirds are turning the ball over or getting turnovers and they're playing the ball really well, that's something that needs to be taken into accountability. Even if it's Greisen, it's going to be something really interesting to see if they can keep that up and keep things going. But we'll have to see it. I mean, that was kind of a mind blowing stat. I thought maybe I got that one wrong, but I'm pretty sure that one's right. And I mean, it's just something interesting to see there. But West Pier, once again, we mentioned tough schedule to close out. Ashwaubenon, Bayport, and Appleton West. But how do you think West Pier finishes in those three games?
It's going to be tough for sure. And to your point, I just double checked to make sure you're right. I'm pretty sure you are right about the De Pere interceptions, and Carter Kaufman's got 5 of them.
Yeah, I just had to double check myself because I know I saw it, and then I was like, what? Like, that's more than the Packers have, and everybody, and it was a stat that just kind of blew my mind. And I was just like, the birds? The birds are flying? Yeah, they sure are. But let's talk about those final 3 games, and then we'll do a score prediction for that West Pier to Pier rivalry.
Yeah, the final 3 games are going to be tough. So they're at home the next 2 weeks. They got De Pere at home on Friday, then they host Eschwaben, and then the big one's going to be October 11th at Bayport.
That one, I got to go with my dogs. Got to go with my dogs.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. So that's on October the 11th. So 3 weeks from now. And then at Appleton West. So the final 3 are certainly going to be tricky, as Schwabenon has kind of hit a little bit of a lull. I know Bayport kind of had their way with them this past week, especially early. It looks like they scored 35 points in the first quarter. So as Schwabenon, they score a lot of points themselves, but they certainly are susceptible to give up a ton of points. They have throughout the season, and they're also they're at Pulaski this week, but they've also lost 2 straight. So maybe you're catching them at a good time if you're the Phantoms. And then that Bayport game, that's going to be the big one that is really going to define their season, I think, because if you want to win the FRCC North right now at the top, essentially, if you want to win the conference, you got to beat De Pere this week, which I think they have a very good chance of doing, and then you got to beat Bayport in a couple weeks.
2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So the final 3 are going to be tough. I think they come out of it with a winning record. I'll say that. I think at worst in that stretch, just because of how good they've looked the last number of weeks, I would probably pick them to go, if not undefeated, probably 2-1, because Appleton West is 2-3. They've had a pretty nice season, but West De Pere just looks super, super good on all facets of the game. So those final 3 are certainly going to be tough, but if they keep this momentum going, I think they have a really good shot to do something really special.
Yeah, I got the same idea. I think they're going to win those versus Schwabenon, and then they also get a win against Appleton West. But I think against Bayport, they're gonna get a big old L in that one. And then let's talk about it real quick. Let's give a score prediction. Redbirds and Phantoms. Who you got?
I'm gonna go with West De Pere. They're at home. They've been playing very, very well. I do think that De Pere is going to keep it very close because defensively they've had a nice few weeks here. I think at the end of the day, Patrick Greisen is going to make one more play than Marcus Schmidt is going to make. Marcus Schmidt, the De Pere quarterback, who's had a good season in his own right. Little short of 500 yards so far, but 6 TDs, only 1 turnover, which is very good. He's mobile. He's got 70 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a somewhat, what you would see on a college day. I think it'll be close. I'm going to go 27-21 in favor of the Phantoms with, I think it's going to come down to the wire. I would not be shocked to see this game come down to De Pere's got the ball, they're driving late, and then the Phantoms come up with a 4th down stop.
So I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to take my dogs with the birds. They got to do it, baby. I mean, it's a passing offense they're going against. They got 11 picks on the season, like 11, double digits. That's a lot. And one guy's got 5 of them already. My goodness, in 5 games. I mean, there's not a lot you can say that I think that defense it's going to be a defensive battle. I know West Pierre's offense is their key focus, but I think they're going to have to go past that De Pere defense. And I got the Redbirds, baby. I got the Redbirds. I'm going to fly with that flock. We'll see what happens. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from my buddy Max and a couple others and that I work with. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the Birds, baby. Let's go Birds. So I'm going to give De Pere 24. And actually, no, I'm going to push it higher. I'm going to cancel that, ignore that first take. But we'll start like this. I'm going to go De Pere gets 28 and West De Pere gets 24.
Wow. Okay. So 28 for De Pere. Just for context, that would be what would this be? Well, they've had some big outings, but it would be more than they scored against Preble last week.
I think they're going to have a big game. I think defense is going to show up. It's a big passing offense for West De Pere. I want to see some turnovers. And I think they're the team to do it. Come on, Birds. Don't let me down.
You think there's a defensive touchdown in this game?
I think so.
Okay.
I think there's going to be one by a pick and one by a forced fumble for De Pere. I got a lot of hopes for this defense. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. We're gonna give them a lot of hope here. I'm gonna go ambitious. Wow. I'm gonna put the poker chips into the deck, and we're gonna send it. But let's talk about Bayport. They once again keep rolling, get another win. They beat Ashwaubenon 42-6. Matt Stevens 7 for 7, 139 yards, 4 TDs, and 158 passer rating, which is a wonderful thing. And it was a big night on the ground for Brady Moon. 9 carries, 112 yards, 2 TDs. Defense also was just a mess for the Jaguars, as Nick Hawker, Landon Cornell, and Max Romanesco had combined for 3 sacks in the loss. So they each had a sack. And, Pirates play host to the... Oh, I messed that up. So they play host to the... I can't remember who they're playing now. I wrote Tritons, but I know that's not right.
They have Southwest at home this week.
Trojans, that's what I meant to write. Yes, the 0-3 Trojans. I wrote Tritons. But how does this one go?
I think it's going to be similar to the last couple of weeks. Bayport is going to come into their home stadium and kind of flex their muscles a little bit. Green Bay Southwest is still looking for their first win on the season. They're 0-5, so it's been a tough sledding for the Trojans so far this year. They've lost a couple close ones. They played Appleton West in a shootout last week. Holy cow, 44-34 was the final score. But I think Bayport, just with their defense alone, with how good it's looked the last couple of weeks, I don't think it's going to be too much of trouble for them. So they're my pick to win this game, and they're going to stay atop the FRCC North here.
Yep, and I just want to mention that you did hit a rhyme there, 44 for 34 or something. You said, and then you said what a score or something. I was okay, sure. Dr. Seuss. But yeah, no doubt about it. I think Bayport's going to win this one. Once again, I think it's going to be kind of blowout fashion, probably that in that 30s for Bayport, and probably maybe a touchdown for the Trojans. Bayport's just got a lot better program, that I would say than Southwest, and they're really good at home. So I think it'll be a really tough game for them. But we'll see what happens there. I mean, the defense for Bayport has been loud, and it's interesting to see what they're doing each week. And I expect them to do a lot here against the Trojans once again.
Yeah, not too much more to add with Bayport the last number of weeks. It's been really nice to see from them, starting off the season kind of in a tough way with that early season loss to Kimberly, but they've really hit the ground, picked themselves up, and gone off and run in the last couple of weeks here. So just a quick point on their schedule too. They go both De Pere teams back to back after this week.
Yep, they got a tough one to close it out.
Yeah, so they're at De Pere on the 4th, and then they host those Phantoms on the 11th. So they've got one couple weeks coming up.
Yep, really tough, couple tough games. Now we're gonna go a little bit to the side here. I'm just gonna ask you a quick question. Who do you think that in the North and South? Who do you think the best team is in the FRCC?
I'm inclined to say Bayport because of how good they have looked, especially after that Kimberly loss. I would say a close second would be, I think, probably West Pier
You're not even
because
putting Notre Dame up there, North and
I
South.
think, well, no, I think Notre Dame's third. I just like more so, and this is not me knocking, my own school here because that would be bad.
Yeah, you're gonna
But
get a lot of flack for that.
yeah, you know what? Not many people watch this, so that's okay.
Oh
Um,
wow, we're trying.
so we are trying. I think West Pier, with the way that they are able to stretch you vertically, poses more of a threat than Notre Dame does with as good as that ground game is. Because, with Notre Dame early in the season, it was all about Christian Collins. And then it was interesting to see for a couple weeks there when he got, kind of dinged up a little bit and they had to, kind of refigure the game plan a bit. And you're seeing some emerging players like a Kingston Allen, like a Jack Collins, coming in and being able to have some success. And what I keep pounding this table for is for them to throw it more because you look at some of the skill position players that they have with James Flanagan, who is the Notre Dame commit. He's going to be playing there next year, who's just an all around stud. And, best wishes to Charlie Dart. He had kind of a really scary injury a couple weeks ago, so best wishes to him and his family. But you look at, Flanagan, Joey Massey's had a couple nice plays at tight end as well. They've always find kind of that second guy to go with their main stud on top of Collins in the passing game with that speed and Allen. I would like to see them open up the playbook more, and they just haven't. And West Pier has. So I would, if they played today, I would probably pick West Pier to win ever so slightly just because they have that threat of being able to push it downfield. And Notre Dame, to this point in the season, granted they haven't really needed it, but they haven't really shown that ability. So my top three, I would go Bayport, West Pier's close. I think they're just a tick below there, and then Notre Dame is three.
Yep, I would probably go the same way. I just wanted to give you a little flack for that. Make sure I address it. But yeah, I would go Bayport 1, probably West Pier 2, and I would say Notre Dame probably 3. De Pere is going to be a close 4.
Yeah, they played really close the time that they matched up. I think if they played again, it'd be a similar but definitely higher scoring game, 7-3. That's like a baseball score. So
Yep.
both teams are much more seasoned and know what they have. So yeah, De Pere is also right there. It's really close at the top
Yeah.
between those four, I'd say.
All right. Well, is there any other sports you'd like to highlight on the show? I know we talk about trying to get more sports involved in this show, and we're working, ladies and gentlemen, to try to do that. But is there any sports you'd like to highlight? How was GRIAC?
GRIAC was a ton of fun. So last week, we mentioned that the Roy GRIAC Invitational, which is hosted at the University of Minnesota, was going on last week. And that was, I got to be there. So if you want to go see the Notre Dame perspective of that, go watch the behind the scenes video on the YouTube channel. It's just Notre Dame Academy on YouTube, Notre Dame Academy Cross Country on YouTube. And then the Instagram page has the races actually with all of our runners in there. So it was a ton of fun. Special shout out to Anna Miller, who is a sophomore this year, who ran a 20:45 in the girls maroon 5K. She placed 12th out of how many people were in this race? 12th out of 281 runners in that race. So she had a really strong showing. She's just an incredible athlete. And then on the boys' side, if anybody follows cross country, you probably have heard the name Joe Hunt before. He ran a 16:48. That was good for 7th in the race out of 200 and oh no, we're going into the 300s here. 6 out of 332 runners in that race. So it's amazing what they're able to do. So it's really a ton of fun to see. I love watching the college kids do it because they're so good at what they do. It's really incredible. The fastest so the guys run an 8K for the guys side of things. The fastest 8K was a 24:55.
A lot faster than I'm going to do it.
Yeah, right. So it's incredible, and then the women run a 6K, and the fastest one there was like I'm looking at here 21:08. That's faster than I've ever run a 5K. So it's pretty amazing what they can do. And so GRIAC was a ton of fun. It was another successful event. I think if I'm remembering correctly, as far as colleges go, there had to be 50 something there. And then as far as high schools go, I'm thinking north of 90. So it was a great event. It always is every year. And just really happy that I got to go there to witness it and be a part of it.
Now I had to I was gonna make a joke when you said your Miller, I believe her last name was, and she
Yeah.
ran the Maroon 5K, and then I was gonna say, oh, did Adam
Yeah.
Levine host that one? Nah,
Yeah,
that would have been
yeah.
funny. That would have been funny. I didn't want to cut you
could've
off
cut it
though.
off. No, you could have. That would have been good.
Yeah, it was Adam Levine sponsor that guy or that
All right.
race. But now we'll just close things out here once again, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's been another fantastic week of high school sports, and we expect another one coming up. But this. I mean, any last words here before we head off?
I don't think so. I do think that next week, maybe potentially, we can get into some girls golf talk because I know the FRCC championship is going on this week, and then I think postseason starts next week. So maybe we'll dive into some golf talk next week.
Perfect. And hopefully we get a guest on here soon. I know we've been hoping for one, but just scheduling hasn't worked out quite as well. So we'll try our best to get that done. But this has been another episode of High School Crunch Time. Once again, I'm Johnny Samp, and that's Dom D'Angelo. And make sure to check us out on Spotify. We are on Spotify, so you can listen to us on your long car rides and anything else you'd like to do, even if you're mowing the grass. Give us a listen. Or you're at the tailgate before a game. Give us a listen. It's a good way to kill the time a little bit. And High School Crunch Time is a fantastic show that's right here from the FRCC. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I want to wish everybody a good night. So we'll see you next time.